Hi there, you're on Gossip Says channel. Enjoy watching, subscribe and like it. It's growing our community. Story 1. I am a woman who was born without a sexual system. How do I tell a guy that I am interested? Update. I was going to make this an edit, but due to its length, I figured to make it a separate post. I don't even know if this is relevant to this subreddit anymore, but I sincerely apologize if I am in the wrong. I just wanted to address some common questions and to clear up some things I've mentioned in the comments briefly. I hope this post is a little more coherent and organized than my previous ones. But before I do that, I want to thank everyone who sent me a DM, inboxed me, or commented, offering to talk or giving me advice. I've read through all of them, but I haven't gotten around to replying. But regardless, thank you so much. You have no idea how much it actually means to me and how much I appreciate it. I love you all. Less than 3. Quick update. I texted Kyle yesterday and he replied. I asked him how he was feeling. He said he was even more sick than earlier. I said I was too, and I said it was his fault in a joking way, because it was just as much my fault too. I told him about how I had a volunteer thing at university which I went to and how I nearly fainted because of my fever and ended up coming home early. But that was it. We didn't talk about much else because he stopped responding. In addition to this, I haven't called the number my Ta gave me because they are only open Monday, Friday from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. so I'm going to be doing that on Monday, hopefully. My condition. The exact name for my condition is Mayer-Rokitansky-Kuster-Hauser syndrome, or MRKH syndrome for short. It affects 1 in every 5,000 women. A lot of people, I'm assuming they were trolls, stated that I was a guy or something along those lines. Just to clarify, I am a woman. I look like a woman physically, and I've felt like a woman my whole life. I was genetically born with XX chromosomes. Being a woman is not something I doubt. There are basically 2 types of branches within MRKH. Type 1 is an isolated occurrence, meaning there is only a lack underdevelopment of internal reproductive organs. Type 2 is more serious as it is also associated with auditory, vertebral, renal, and cardiac issues. This may include hearing loss, bent or curved spine, missing kidney, etc. I have type 1. There are a lot of variations for each woman and to what extent they are affected by this. I am mainly going to be talking about my individual case. Diagnosis. A lot of people were confused as to why I was only diagnosed with this a year ago and not at birth. And why did I find out after already being with my ex for over a year? The way MKRH works is that it affects internal reproductive organs. This means that just by looking on the outside, it isn't detectable. From the outside, I look like a normal female. I have normal external genitalia, including a clitoris, urethra, labia, etc. I am missing the vaginal opening, cervix, uterus, fallopian tubes, and my ovaries are underdeveloped. My ovaries contain a few eggs, and they function enough to produce lower levels of estrogen, which is why I am still physically able to look like a female. For me personally, instead of a vaginal opening, I have something called an indentation or dimple. For 18 years of my life, I lived thinking I was just like any other girl. I never once suspected anything wrong. When I started dating my ex, we never attempted to have sex because neither of us were ready. But this was around the time I started to feel like something was wrong. One main reason was that I hadn't started my period, and the second being the fact that I wasn't able to insert a finger inside my vagina. For some reason, at the time, I assumed periods and fingering went together. I thought that once a girl got her period, her vagina opened and the barrier fell out or something like that. It's weird looking back at that now, haha. I went to the doctors one day. This was before I started dating my ex with my mom after she started getting worried about me not getting my period. This is probably one of the most common ways women with MRKH find out about it. The doctors simply assumed that I was a late bloomer and told me to fix up my diet and workout. I was underweight at the time, around 82 pounds with a height of 5 feet or 152 centimeters. I was referred to a pediatrician who did absolute jack shit about my situation. The following year, I got my shit together on my own. I joined the wrestling team, track team, and I started doing weight training. As a result of this, I was also eating way more, and I gained a lot of muscle mass. I got my weight up to 120 pounds when I still hadn't gotten my period. I went back to the doctors. They still didn't take it too seriously, telling me that some women don't get their periods until they turn 20 or something, or asked me about my family history. I had multiple blood tests done, showing my levels were completely normal. I didn't feel like everything was normal, so I switched around doctors, seeing different specialists and pediatricians, getting more and more blood tests done each time. Needless to say, I was getting tired of blood tests because I knew they didn't show anything. One doctor said my prolactin levels were too high, but I think that was circumstantial. Prolactin is the hormone that produces breast milk in pregnant women, and she kept insisting that I had breast discharge, which is something I had never experienced before in my life. Somehow, I can't exactly remember which doctor, I ended up getting put on birth control pills as an attempt to reset my biological functions and induce a period. I diligently took the BC pills every day. Nothing happened. This is when I thought, is it just me or does healthcare in Canada suck? Then another doctor suggested I get a pelvic ultrasound done. This is when they found the issue. The poor lady who did my ultrasound spent over an hour looking for my uterus, which didn't even exist. The doctor did a pretty terrible job of telling me the news, in all honesty. She stood at the door, ultrasound reading in hand, with the door wide open, and told my mom I had MRKH. She said according to the ultrasound I had an underdeveloped uterus. This ends up being false later. She literally didn't even spend 2 minutes talking about it and left. I walked back to the car with my mom. She was crying as she called my dad and told him the news. His response was just to start swearing, not knowing he was on speakerphone and I could hear him. And then he said, "It's okay, just forget it." I came home and I did some Googling and started to learn more about MRKH. I had already been with my ex for over a year up till this point, and I texted him while he was at work and told him about it. I also added that if it changed anything between us, that I would understand, and I wouldn't hold it against him. As much as I might hate him now, he was the only one who ever handled this news properly, which is something I really needed at the time. After the initial news, my doctor handed my file over to a sick kids hospital in downtown Toronto as they were better equipped to handle cases like mine. They started off by wanting to get everything straight with what they knew about my condition. They had me get an MRI done because, although ultrasounds are more inexpensive, they are not as clear and detailed as an MRI. I also had an ear exam, X-rays of my spine, and another pelvic ultrasound to check kidneys. Doctors aren't allowed to disclose patient information, and of course, the poor lady spent a good while looking for my uterus and even called in another technician to help. I ended up asking them if they were trying to look for my uterus, because I didn't have one. The look on their face was hilarious, as I'm sure they probably never heard of my condition either. After I met up with my doctor, and everything was figured out, I was properly informed that I did not have any issues with my spine, or kidneys, or ears. But I was missing a uterus, cervix, vaginal canal, and fallopian tubes. I was called in for another appointment after a couple weeks, and they did a physical examination where they wanted to measure the depth of my vagina. They had me lay down with my legs in the stirrups, and they took a Q-tip covered in a lubricant gel and inserted it in my vagina. The depth of it was about 3 millimeters deep. It was actually quite painful, and I hated doctors by this point anyways. Family situation. My parents are pretty religious, and discussions about topics about the female body, menstruation, and private matters like that are highly taboo. Everyone knows about it, but no one talks about it. My mother isn't educated and she doesn't know English well, so most of the time when I went to the doctors, I went with my dad. It was very weird and awkward. The few times my dad refused to go with me, I went with my mom and had to translate everything the doctor were saying for her. After my last appointment with Sick Kids Hospital, they referred me to a social worker who gave me her business card, some brochures, and other things with information about my condition. My dad took those from me and threw them out, saying I didn't need them. They also asked if I would like to attend the support group meetings they had weekly at the hospital, to which my dad also insisted that I didn't. Going to therapy at the hospital in secret isn't an option because it's too far. I can't drive on the highway yet, and it would be impossible for me to make up some lie to go. Taking the bus there would take over 2 hours, which I don't particularly mind doing if it helps me, but I don't have time due to school. I actually got a letter from the hospital in September about a pretty cool MRKH conference here where different doctors came with information and everyone dealing with it was invited. I really wanted to go. But again, it was far. I figured since it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, I could definitely bus there. The event started at 8 a.m. and busing literally took 5 hours. It was unrealistic for me to go. So then I told my parents about it, and they said you don't want to go to that. They'll put all sorts of rubbish in your mind and how you're not really a woman. I tried arguing that it was exactly the opposite of that, and that they want to inform you that you are women despite the lack of certain organs. They responded by taking away the letter, which had a website address on it I had received from the hospital, and throwing it away. I had someone telling me that I need to stand up to my parents. My parents aren't the issue, but my dad is. Unfortunately, due to the circumstances that I don't particularly want to reveal online, standing up to him jeopardizes everything for my mother and my younger siblings, which is something I refuse to do. I am well aware of the shitty situation I am in. I know they are being abusive in more than one way. I've thought long and hard about it, and I've come to the terms that not doing anything about it is the best approach. I'm not saying this out of fear or wanting to be selfish and pretending like we're like a normal family. I've seriously taken everyone's well-being and the future of my younger siblings into consideration, and unfortunately, this is the best option for now. Surgery. I had a lot of people asking or informing me about surgery. In my first post, somewhere in the comments, I believe I said something along the lines of I'm a broke college student, and surgery isn't an option right now, as a way to avoid talking about the real reason why I can't get surgery yet. Lucky for me, I live in Canada and I have health insurance. Surgery is definitely an option for me. But due to my family situation, they believe that I won't need surgery until after I get married, because it's not like I'm going to be having sex anytime soon. Haha. Whereas on the other hand, I work part-time. I study my ass off in school, and I make time to do extracurricular stuff. I also deal with depression, self-harm, and suicidal thoughts. But I treat each day as an opportunity to make progress. I'm not saying I'm better than him because our circumstances are very different, nor am I saying that he's not trying his best because everyone deals with things differently. I'm just saying he doesn't have his shit figured out yet, and I'm not into that. In addition to this, he was once involved in a situation where he was the other guy. He was involved with a girl who had a boyfriend, and he knew this before getting involved with her but continued with it anyways because he was lonely. I was on the opposite end of that kind of situation, and even though he might not be aware of the magnitude of his actions, I am. There is no way I am dating someone who selfishly puts their needs first and is able to convince themselves that cheating is somehow okay. This is far longer than it needed to be, sorry. I hope I answered some questions. I really do appreciate all the support I got. Thank you, and take care everyone. Less than 3.